Good morning, Deepu. A warm welcome to you on behalf of APAC News Network. Very briefly, APAC News Network, we are headquartered out of Noida, and we focus across government, healthcare, education, enterprise, IT, BFSI, the verticals. And so this APAC Dialogue series is a part of a video interaction with technology leaders, both from the vendor side as well as from the enterprise user side. So primarily, we'd like to keep the focus of today's discussion into two parts. The first part, I would like a little bit to know about the technology deployment in Bajaj Allianz specifically, more in terms of, and the second part, I would like to talk about more the generic technology and the business issues around technology. So maybe the best way to start would be if you can give an outline about one broadly the different facets of the main technology deployments at Bajaj Allianz and which are the leading solution providers that you are working with.
Yeah. Firstly, thank you, and it's a pleasure being here. Now, in terms of what we have done, from a digitization perspective, I think COVID was for us, like one of my friends colorfully put it, an unplanned global UAT, and I think we passed the test with flying colors because we were able to ensure that our customers were able to pivot to digital servicing overnight. And at that point of time, we even saw a dip in customer grievances by 90%, right? Such a huge dip. And if you look at the deployments that we have made from a digital perspective, it covers an entire range. From a customer facing perspective, as I told you, at the peak of COVID-19, 80% of our servicing was not via the contact center. It was via a host of digital assets that we had deployed, be it WhatsApp, our mobile app, AI driven chatbot, customer portal, so on and so forth. Similarly, if you look at the entire customer life cycle, while I talked about the customer facing assets, but if you look at the entire life cycle, starting from customers approaching us to buy insurance policies, to getting service through their life cycle, and coming towards claims, which is the moment of truth, because ultimately customers buy an insurance policy so that the company can come to their aid, at the time when they need us the most, which is during the claim process, and then finally going towards renewal. Now, if you look at policy issuance, we have ensured that it's become largely paperless. So today, our partners, because insurance continues to be a distribution-led business, can issue policies at their end. So that's clearly how we've been able to digitize the policy issuance process. And if you look at life cycle management, especially as COVID testified to our capabilities, thanks to self-service, whether it's customers or whether it's partners, they can avail of our host of assets, like I mentioned to you, WhatsApp, the website, the mobile app, and then avail of various aspects. And when it comes to claims, I think we've deployed state-of-the-art technology to ensure that we've revolutionized this. If you look at travel insurance, we deployed a blockchain-driven claim settlement process nearly 4 years ago. If you look at motor claims, we use a combination of AI and photogrammetry to move away from physical inspection to self-service, by the customer. And if you look at health, we've again been able to leverage telemedicine and paperless processing across the entire spectrum, to ensure that claims and policy issuance continued uninterrupted during the pandemic. And then when it comes to renewals, we've enabled that touch-free renewals to a large extent. So I think across the entire enterprise, we've been able to digitize, customer touch points as well as our internal processes. And I think the metrics are here to, showcase them. As I mentioned, we enjoy the lowest grievances, amongst various players. When it comes to the regulator, we enjoy the highest NPS, from a third-party market research firm's perspective. And we have won a host of awards, especially in the last 18 months. So I think customer feedback and industry recognition, testify to the fact that we've been able to digitize across the entire life cycle using an array of tools, from the simplest of digital tools to state-of-the-art technology.
Okay, so one thing you mentioned here about, and which is true for any insurance company, is the whole partner ecosystem that you're working with. And now, and especially since you talked about the COVID times, post pandemic, the challenges. So, what that requires from a technology perspective is a certain level of standardization across the entire partner network also, for the seamlessly the systems to talk to each other. So how do you ensure that part? And there is a security aspect involved too. So both standardization and security across the partner network, especially considering that many of the people were working from home, and so a lot of heterogeneous systems came into the network. So how did you manage that?
Yeah. So if you look at the entire ecosystem, we have a range of partners. On the one hand, we have service providers, who help us with point solutions, along the entire life cycle. Similarly, from a distribution perspective, we have plenty of partners. From a servicing perspective, again, we have a host of partners. And today it's all about we, right? It's not about me. I think that's how the digital economy works. So what we have done is, right at the start, our due diligence process, when we enroll partners, that takes into account, rigor in terms of ensuring that, we are able to talk to each other, not only from a cultural, fit point of view, but also from the perspective of, technical compatibility. So clearly, that's one thing which we bring. Secondly, I think, while we do ensure that, there are standards, I'll focus more on standards other than standardization, in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of, expectations from partners. I think we've been agile and flexible, to pivot to the specific requirements of our partners across the entire ecosystem, and we've been able to, work together. I'll give you one example. We launched an app exclusively for farmers called Farm Mitra, and that's because crop insurance, is a major line of business for us, and this was an industry first app. Rural marketplaces are typically not characterized by by organized ways of communicating information. So we came out with this app in Indian languages, and farmers could avail of this for availing of our services. They could go to the government. They could, get app notifications from us on the weather. They could get crop diagnostics, crop advisories, so on and so forth. And when COVID happened, this became a boon for them. Because sitting in the comfort of their home, using the language of their choice, they could interact with, the ecosystem at large. Downloads went up. At one point of time, we had a rating of 4.5, on the Play Store. And this was a unanimous choice for the Global EFM Accenture Innovation and Insurance Award last year. It just goes to show that, if we're able to work in tandem with various partners across the ecosystem, we can really not only solve for the customer, but we can come out with, revolutionary industry leading products.
Okay, the other part of what is especially relevant in these last 1.5 years during the pandemic were many of the aspects you mentioned, the different areas where technology has been deployed. So you would be working with multiple solution providers and SIs and vendors. And there were those pre-existing SLAs prior in the pre-pandemic days. Now, how did those SLAs get impacted during the pandemic, and how did you sort of ensure that the SLAs were conformed to, especially considering insurance is such a regulation driven sector where you have to keep those in mind also?
Yeah. I think it's a good question. If you look at COVID-19, nobody had, predicted COVID-19, right? BCPs had not taken this into account. But I think what helped us, was that we had embarked on a digitization journey, much in advance of COVID-19. So when COVID happened, like I said, we were ready. We were able to immediately reach out to our customers, and tell them that, we are here, right? Please use all these alternate digital assets, which we had built over the years. Now, coming to your point around, SLAs and, how did we ensure governance, keeping regulatory requirements in mind. As I said, since we had not seen COVID coming, all the SLAs which we had worked with earlier were, keeping the physical environment, in mind, right? The way the world was, before COVID-19. And I think the moment this pivot happened, right? I think the one good thing is, this was a global phenomenon, right? It was not specific to any industry or any country. So everybody, was coming to grips with the new reality. And I think SLAs across the board, were revamped, right? Because you had to ensure that, you were agile and quick off the blocks. So, since we were prepared, as I said, we were able to, get going immediately. We didn't face a single glitch, either from a partner perspective or from a customer perspective, because we were ready. And like I said, the dip in customer grievances and the rise in partner satisfaction, is testimony to that fact. Now, coming to regulation, it goes without saying that, that's clearly, the number one criterion for us. we obviously will ensure that whatever we do is compliant from a regulatory perspective. We also need to thank the regulator, because the regulator has also come out of the sandbox model, by which they've approved some proofs of concept by which you can take things to market, and then subject to the way it works, you can then go back to the regulator and take it forward. So all in all, I think the fact that the fact that we were ready, just ensured that SLAs and agreements and reworking them from from a timeline perspective. I think this was just par for the course. I don't think that we face any challenge there.
Okay. And another critical aspect, obviously, you touched upon for any insurance is the claims processing part. And claims processing part, two vital aspects is one, the timeliness, whether the claims are processed and basically the person gets it in time. And the other is the accurateness, the accuracy in terms of the verification and these things. So, how far has technology sort of facilitated both these aspects, timeliness and accuracy, and the verification part, especially in pandemic times?
Yeah. In fact, if you recollect, I touched upon this, in my opening statement, and I'll give you two examples, to explain how we leveraged technology and digitization to revamp the entire claims process. Let's take international travel insurance. Now, earlier, in case you had to, let's say, catch a flight from India to, let's say, US long distance flight, and if your flight was delayed, and then what you would do is you would basically focus on booking the flight all over again, and then you think about all your arrangements at the destination, right? Maybe canceling the the first night at the hotel, booking an additional night, planning your meetings all over again. And at that point of time, if someone were to tell you that you're eligible for an insurance claim thanks to the flight delay, it's not something which would be top of mind for you. And even if you were to do, you would have had to maybe get some proof from the airline that the flight is delayed, submit documents, so on and so forth. We said, why don't we just make this entire process very simple? So what we did, we leveraged blockchain, and we put others in a position by which we would get immutable proof that the flight is delayed. So the onus was no longer on the customer. So the customer didn't have to worry about proving to us that the flight was delayed. We get to know. And in a fundamental change to the entire insurance value chain process, we then intimated customers. Instead of the customers reaching out to us, we intimated customers saying a flight is delayed, and we understand that you are on this, and therefore wish you all the best, and this is what you're eligible for. So for the customer, it moved from being a source of friction to being a source of delight. And the moment we know that the customer's on this flight which has been delayed, we can transfer money to him. So what used to be a hassle-driven process, become a hassle-free process thanks to the development of technology. Similarly, let's take motor claims. What happens if you crash a car? You call up the insurance company. They basically allocate the nearest surveyor. He'll visit the site of the crash, prepare a report, submit it, and the whole process kicks in. So we said, why don't we simplify this? So now what we did was we set up an AI engine, and we taught it, using our own experience, and we leverage a tool called photogrammetry. So now customers don't need to call, surveyors, if the damage is up to a certain extent. They just need to take photographs and upload them using the mobile app. 2 steps. Take photographs and upload them. Our AI engine will analyze the images, and within 20 minutes, let you know the amount. You give your consent, the money is transferred. So what takes days, now happens in minutes. And if you look at both the blockchain-driven travel claim settlement process, and if you look at this AI and photogrammetry-driven motor claim process, it addresses, the two angles that you spoke about, accuracy and timeliness, because these are the two factors, which lie at the heart of, a good claim process. We obviously need to ensure that we are as quick as possible from a customer's perspective. At the same time, we need to get it right, because this is one area where insurers, do come under attack, from a lot of, fraudulent, entities out there. So I think the fact that we've leveraged technology, helps us cater to both the angles. And going back to the point that I made about customer and industry recognition, I think we've been consistently recognized for being one of the fastest, claims service providers in the marketplace.
And so the very fundamental question internally, how did you manage? I'm sure, especially during the first year of the pandemic, most of your employees would have also been working from home and this work from anywhere. So how did you manage internally, and what role did technology play there?
Good question again. I think, while the entire world has been talking about, digitizing the physical, I think what we need to understand is, there's a human being, behind every digital interaction, especially those who are servicing customers day in and day out. And while I think the accent at that time, right, at the peak of COVID-19, the whole action was on safety. It was about ensuring social and physical distancing. We also realized, that we needed to ensure that while they were socially and physically distanced, they were emotionally and digitally connected. And that's precisely, where technology came in. And as I said, because everybody was, in the same bandwagon, we leverage, all these digital collaboration tools, like how you and I are talking today. One, to ensure that, people were able to work in a seamless manner. And I think we converted adversity into opportunity. So what we did was we moved from employee engagement to family engagement. Because now that people were working from home, we said, why restrict it only to employees? Like it would have been if, let's say, people were coming to office. We said, now that they are at home, let's get families in. So, for example, we had a weekend master chef, and we told them it's open to your families, right? And we had this WhatsApp group because it's happening virtually, where people could post, recipes. And we saw some very mouth-watering, photographs posted by somebody's mother, somebody's sister, somebody's daughter, somebody's wife, and then it just set off, a huge chain of emotional reactions in the group, and people loved it. Then we had digital Antakshari, we had digital painting competitions, digital singing competition. We also leveraged this, to ensure digital learning and development, because people were saving time on commute. So we also gave them, digital learning and development. And ironically, when we took, pulse on employee engagement scores, a few weeks after the initial weeks of the pandemic, we found, and I would say not very surprisingly, that our employee engagement scores actually went up as a result of the pandemic, because because we had now leveraged families. And at that point of time, we put all of these together, through a homegrown engagement program, a family engagement program called Celebrating You. And we had 4 pillars. One was educate, so which was around digital learning and development. One was what we called fun at work, so we had a lot of these fun sessions where people participated. And then we had one known as nourish, where people were given advice on how to manage physical and mental health. And then we had connect, where people reached out to various folks across. So if we set up even something known as chai pe charcha, why should we only have calls to discuss work, right? Simple, get to know each other, coffee table kind of a conversation. So I think for us it just turned out to be an amazing way of how to manage employees during the pandemic. Scores were high, we gave out awards, we had this we had fun, we organized virtual birthday parties. And I think it just continued in a completely uninterrupted manner.
That's great to know. Another part, this is more a specific company question and more a generic question also. See, typically, while migrating towards cloud was becoming mainstream, this pandemic sort of accelerated the situation. And now, typically, what happens? One, I would like to know from your organization perspective, what is a cloud deployment scenario? And overall, typically, most uh, insurance and financial organizations are running nowadays on multiple clouds. So, multiple clouds from multiple vendors and different applications and things will be. So, this multi cloud environment, typically, what are the challenges in sort of managing seamlessly so that there is no productivity getting compromised in that situation?
Yeah. So if you look at us, we were pioneers, in terms of moving to the cloud. We were actually transforming our core platform. It's been with us for close to 2 decades. So while we were on this core platform transformation, we also simultaneously decided to move to the cloud, and it actually came out in the newspapers, as an industry first, by a large player, who's not only transforming the core, but it's also simultaneously, moving to the cloud. So we embarked on this journey nearly 2 years ago, and we've had multiple benefits, right? We all know the benefits of avoidance of hardware obsolescence. Apart from that, earlier data, right? Because today the footprint is increasingly digital. Earlier data used to reside in siloed data marts. Now we have a single data lake, and that helps us not only give better products to customers, but we are also able to give them location based servicing. So if from the point of view of both servicing and cross sell and upsell, we're able to leverage data from a customer perspective. Now coming to a point around multi cloud, I guess that's par for the course, right? What's happened today, all the traffic jams which you saw on physical highways are now shifted to digital highways, right? So initially firms will think about, okay, fine, moving to the cloud, right? It becomes a move no move kind of a discussion. And the moment that happens, then whether you should have one provider, multiple providers. So each firm, decides to chart its own path, right? So on the one hand, you have a hybrid model where you have cloud and on-prem. And on the other hand, you'll have a multiple cloud model, where you might have, multiple service providers. And, so it's for each firm to, chart out. And the points that you raised in terms of ensuring sync, in terms of ensuring harmony, it is the same way that, you would have had to, manage this, when you were in the earlier physical environment, right? Earlier, when, we had a core and then, we had a system of scattered subsystems, right? How do you ensure sync across all of these, right? For example, the address field for a customer, it might have 30 characters in one system. It might be 28 in the other, right? So the same challenges that you have, from a standardization perspective, you have to tackle these, in the new environment. It's just that the turf has changed. The turf has changed, from a physical environment, to a digital environment. And I'm sure that, firms and providers, will work together to solve this problem, the way that, they had solved in the earlier scenario. And if you look at cloud, I guess, from a security perspective, obviously providers do invest in it because that's one of the business cases that they have. And even for us, from a data perspective, whether it is data at rest, whether it's data in motion, in terms of encryption, in terms of, retrieval of data, in terms of security, I think these are the various angles that we look at. And today, to your earlier point on standardization, I think, these have become standard toolkits, by which firms and, providers, evaluate the entire scenario. And I think, this has now become the new normal. So I think today it's pretty much par for the course. It's no longer, something, which is absolutely novel, right? We have been on that path, and I think, firms will continue on this path.
Another very critical aspect, obviously, from insurance is ensuring the customer experience. And you earlier touched upon this customer experience. The delivery channels today is an omni-channel one you mentioned. Can be from website, WhatsApp, other mobile app, IVR. Another IVR would also have some chatbots or some sort of robotics involved. So how do you look at this omni-channel delivery experience through different media, and how do you take care of that?
Yeah. So there are basically two aspects to it. I think first is, we follow what we call, very simple 5-step process. The first step is basically, listening to customers. It's not only about, listening to reactive customer feedback, but it's also about proactively, taking feedback, be it by way of transaction NPS or focus group discussions, or your relationship NPS. The second step is then to figure out, customer stated needs and unstated needs. And I think that's where a lot of firms lose out because you typically only focus on stated needs. The third step then, once you've done steps 1 and 2, is to take stock of your current landscape of your systems and processes. And typically you will find that they have been possibly set up, with a departmental focus in mind and not necessarily a customer focus in mind. Then the fourth step becomes, using the principles of Lean Six Sigma, re-engineering the entire landscape to make sure it's customer friendly. And then the fifth step, is then to deploy solutions. Now that's where, like I told you, that an omnichannel experience is relevant because you need to give different solutions to different customers because ultimately, you're not dealing with a homogeneous set of customers and therefore you need to give customers choice, right? So in my earlier firm, for instance, we focused on payment options, right? And we were market leaders with a wide variety of payment options. And here, it's about giving customers choice, right? Some people are comfortable with WhatsApp, some are comfortable with the portal, some are comfortable with email, some are comfortable with, the mobile app. So it's about, giving customers, choice. And I think the key here is to ensure consistency, right? Because sometimes firms may end up having, one particular asset, which possibly gives, a better experience than the other. So how do you ensure that? The other important angle, when we look at omni-channel is to avoid looking only within your industry. Because the moment you go digital, the industry barriers disappear. It becomes an industry agnostic experience for the customer. The customer is not going to compare his mobile app with the best that he has seen in that industry. He's going to compare it to the best that he has seen across categories. So therefore I think casting your net wide and far and taking into account experiences in that category across industries becomes absolutely relevant. And to your point around how do we consistently raise the bar. So in the 5-step process, I told you that we focus on unstated needs. And let me give you one example. During the pandemic, while we would have focused, like I told you earlier, on digitizing the entire insurance landscape, we also figured out, for instance, and it was not a core insurance need, that customers who had minor ailments couldn't even go to doctors because obviously, given the pressure, there was priority given to COVID-19, and due to lockdown, people couldn't travel as well initially. So we came out with a very simple doctor on chat option on a mobile app. So all our customers needed to do was to basically log in, have a digital consultation via text, video, or audio, and then just go and buy medicines. and our customers loved it. It's not a core insurance need, but we made their unstated need. And now going forward, I think from a UI UX perspective, the focus will be on touchless. Today, as you know, everybody's wary of touch. Nobody wants to press the button in the elevator or the key in the ATM. So how do you ensure, that you have, UI UX which is touchless? And I'll give you one couple of examples here. So today, when our customers walk into branches, there's no, we don't shake hands, we don't exchange paperwork, right? So we have deployed QR codes. They just need to scan them. The URL opens up, and they get their, request fulfilled. Similarly, our chatbot is also integrated with Alexa and Google Assistant. So if you have a request, if you have Alexa at home, you can just say, "Hey Alexa, can I get a copy of my insurance policy?" Alexa speaks to a bot, and the bot then sends it to your registered email ID. So how do you leverage voice? How do you leverage the current touchless environment and keep ramping it up? So it's an ever it's an ongoing journey where the landscape is dynamic and is shifting by the day, and you need to ensure that you're completely on top. The three angles here: one is focusing on customers' unstated needs, the other is focusing on the best experience in that category without looking at industry boundaries, and the third is ensuring that you're raising the bar every single day.
Okay. And another thing which you touched upon, and again very important, you mentioned about the cross-selling and upselling of different services being done. So my question is, what role has technology played, and especially again during pandemic times? For an insurance company, business has to be two ways. One is acquiring newer customers, that's also critical. Vis-a-vis where this cross-selling and upselling comes in place, where you are trying to sort of deepening the engagement with the existing customers. So how technology sort of helps in balancing between this retention of existing customers and acquisition of new customers?
Yeah. See, I think if you look at acquisition of new customers, I mentioned to you that today our partners, need not send paper to us, right? They have apps and portals by which they can issue policies at their own end. So we leverage technology to empower them, right? They can issue policies at their end. They don't need to collect paper, send it to us, and go through the whole rigmarole. Secondly, in terms of retention, one of course data, right? I told you that we have a single data lake, and therefore we get a much better single view of our customer. And from our renewals perspective, I spoke to you earlier as well, that we are focused on touch-free renewals, so which ensures that with a single click, customers are able to, get their policies issued. So from a new acquisition perspective, we enabled our distributors, and even our customers, of course, so that, they can get policies issued or get services executed, at their end. And for renewal customers, I spoke about, touch-free, and underlying all of these, is data, by which, like I told you, we get a singular view. I'll give you one example, of how we've been able to add value there, using technology. So today, if a customer, let's say, were to click on a branch, using Google Maps, right? Normally, he would click and then go to the office. Today we have a bot which pops up and says, I saw that you wanted to go to this place. Is there a way, by which I can eliminate this need, by giving you service on the spot? And let's say, the customer gets serviced on the spot, with the bot's help, then the need to go to the branch is obviated. So that's how, by leveraging data and by leveraging digitization across the entire landscape, and of course, using Six Sigma rigor, we've been able to ensure that, we have notched up our customer experience.
Okay. One thing I would like to understand, this is more an organization perspective. Now, from an insurance company, you would have someone managing the technology infrastructure, someone overseeing the digital transformation, the digitization specifically, someone looking at the security, and then there are the functional aspects only also. So, how is the overall digital or technology um, team or infrastructure structured in your organization, and how they are aligned with the different functional aspects?
I think for us, it starts with culture. If you look at our logo says, caringly yours. So I think for us, it's not about, resting on what we have done, but it's about ensuring, that we are there day in and day out for our customers and our partners. So I think that clear ambition, to be there for our customers, is at the heart of everything that we do. Now, coming to how the teams are structured, we basically focus on two aspects. One, of course, like all firms, we do have, a team which basically focus on security, infrastructure, customer facing assets, so on and so forth, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about the middle office, the front office, and the back office, right? How do you ensure that all of them are in sync, to deliver services to customers. The third thing is, we do believe, that today it's not about being a know-it-all. It's about being a learn-it-all, right? You can't say that, you are the only player in business and you know everything. It's also about, ensuring that you partner with, people who can give you point solutions. So when we have that classic make versus buy solution, and if it makes sense to buy, rather than make, then, then we work with, relevant partners at relevant points, along the customer life cycle. So we work with fintechs, insurtechs, and of course, large service providers. So we have some organic solutions, some inorganic solutions, and some, which are a mix of both. So that's largely how, we have catered to this landscape.
Okay. So when you talk about having both organic and inorganic solutions, one question becomes, say, traditionally, if we look at the IT team or the technology team, has always been looked upon as a cost center. Now that shift from a cost center towards a profit center in terms of, you mentioned about customer facing, developing solutions or applications which can directly bring in revenues for the organizations. How has the role of the IT team evolved there?
See, if you look at, the whole, back office, front office conversation, right, in terms of revenue and cost, I think one is, this is of course cost of doing business, right? If you don't have the right digital tools, you'll not even be in business, right? So I guess that's a, very clear business case. The other is, we have been pioneers in terms of, bringing out several solutions, right? So for example, if you look at what I told you, that blockchain driven claim settlement solution, or if you look at the AI and, photogrammetry driven motor claim solution, clearly, these are, industry solutions, where we've been pioneers, right? I mean, the business case is obvious. And if you look at business case, we look at three aspects. One, of course, we do a cost benefit analysis. What are the cost of the tool, and therefore, how does it play out, right? Typically, it's a game of one-time capex and opex savings over the years. The other is, we look at intangible benefits also, right? Which is not measured in hardcore financial terms, but of course, measured in terms of, various metrics. So for example, how do we do on grievance ratios as per the regulator? How do we do on, independent third-party assessments on net promoter scores? These are two, three things. And the third, summing it all up together, we look at, the valuation of the brand. So I think if you look at some of these aspects, I think from a back office perspective, we've been clearly on top, and we do measure it using Six Sigma, and I know that's the way we'll continue to chart out this journey. Ensure that you have clear metrics for success, because then you're able to ensure that it's sustainable.
This is overall more from the insurance perspective. If we look at it, what is likely to emerge is a hybrid kind of work environment, even in the near future. Definitely, the situation will not be exactly what it was pre-pandemic days. So, keeping that hybrid work environment in mind, again, insurance being such a regulated industry, what sort of regulatory changes or conformances do you expect to happen or are likely to happen in the near future?
I think our regulator has been very supportive and proactive. I told you about the sandbox model, by which you can test a POC, and then scale it up to production. So that's clearly, one area where innovation is allowed. The other is, when COVID happened, the regulator allowed us, to basically deal, using soft copies, right? So that aids digitization, across the entire spectrum, be it from the customer's perspective or the partner's perspective. So clearly, that's one area. Thirdly, I think there are ongoing conversations, between the regulator, and let's say the industry council, whereby we discuss, a lot of aspects, and and I think due to partnership between the two, we've been able to take, various, measures forward, whether it's Internet of Things, whether it's, discussions on, various areas across the entire spectrum, especially on, renewals, and, claims. I think, the industry has been able to work together with the regulator. So I think that clearly, has been one of the highlights, in fact, and we just expect and desire, that this partnership continues.
Okay, and the last question I'd like to ask is, in terms of looking at the next 3 to 4 quarters, what are the main key focus areas technology-wise in your roadmap, the key focus areas or key initiatives that are planned?
I think there are very clear 3-4 areas which I already spoke to you about. You also touched upon the fact that we're going to enter into a hybrid world, and clearly it's digital. If you look at our industry, the fulfillment is physical. If you crash your car, you have to take it to a repair, to a repair workshop to get it repaired. If you're unwell, you have to go to a hospital, to get well, right? You can't get healed digitally, but the processing can be, digital. So that's where, it's going to be a combination of, digital and physical. Secondly, I spoke to you about voice, right? Clearly, how, this entire touch-free UI UX, voice comes into play. That's clearly one focus area I told you. We did speak about data, right? How today the entire footprint is digital, and therefore, how firms are leveraging data, to get rich insights and convert them into meaningful outcome for customers. That's one dimension. The fourth, I think, especially in the Indian context, as we get into the Intel end, is focus on multilingual, which I referred to, when I spoke about, our exclusive app for farmers, because digital assets typically tend to be in English. But if you really want to amplify your reach, then you have to focus on multilingual. So I think these are three, clear 3-4 areas, which firms will focus on in the coming, few months and years. And I think underlying all of these, is touchless UI UX.
Exactly. Thanks. Thanks a lot for that. Greatly appreciate you taking your time out for this interaction.
Thank you. Wish you a nice day ahead. Thank you very much. Yeah. Bye.
Same here. Thank you.